Hello everyone, I'm going to be doing a little talk about with this beautiful book called Where the Crawdads Sing. Now, someone very special gave me this book to read. There's even notes in here and highlights about how the person that gave this to me, how this story really affected her because it reminded her so much of her childhood and her life, growing up in a rural area with lots of nature and all that kind of good jazzy snazzy stuff. Um, This book is a red alert, must be read. You have to go read it. It's a stunner, and I cannot wait to see what Delia Owens, even though I think she's actually 70 to the like 70 sharp. Not like, when people say, oh, they're 70 and they're like 73. She's really 70. And I think she has a lot more stories to tell, and I would really welcome those stories. Okay, so this book is about Kaya Clark. She's referred to as the Marsh Girl. The further we get into the book, it's very gradual that she becomes the Marsh Girl for the reader. But for, the people that live in these various places in the story, she has her own, kind of mythology that is attached to her, and maybe you can relate to that as someone who might be seen as someone who's reclusive, like when I was a kid, we had someone who was the witch that lived 2 blocks away or something like that. And then you kind of don't even think of them as a person so much, and that's one of the issues that she has to deal with as this book progresses towards the end. We get to know Kaya at about the age of 4, about the age of 5, when she should be going to school. She goes to school one day. She is taught, however, by a young man later in her life, because Kaya is all but abandoned gradually. Her mother leaves because she just can't take some stuff that's going on in the family. Her brothers and sisters leave her as they age. One does come back into her life later on, but yeah, I don't want to get too much into that. And then her father eventually leaves her, and she decides she has this horrible sense of what it would be like to be fostered, and she is in love with the marsh. And for me, it was interesting to find out that there's a difference between the marsh and the swamp, and it's a very important difference because the marsh is where the sea and the freshwater meet, and there's most of the sea life that we know needs the marsh to survive, and so much marshland is being destroyed. It's so upsetting, and this book deals a lot with that. You can tell this book was written by a naturalist, a biologist, maybe a zoologist. I don't know if Delia Owens, the author, I'm not exactly for sure. I think I could read right now. I don't want this to be too. She is a scientist, a wildlife scientist. So yeah, so she would know what. That's another thing. This is that part of the book is so strong. What's so fascinating is Kaya lives, and there's a map. So anytime that you want to think about where Kaya's at in any part of the story, any part of her age, wherever she's at, there's just this very little section of the world that Kaya habitates in. If habitate's a verb, I don't know. But here's where the town folk live, the upper class. And this is Kaya's shack, way out in the marsh. Here's Jumpin' Jacks. Not like the third. Well, I guess maybe that was a play on the word. But he's like a bait and tackle store. He has like all kinds of different things. There's Point Beach, because this is the ocean right here. And there's coves, and there's the fire tower, Barkley Cove Fire Tower, where a murder mystery right here happens. This is where the body is found. And it's really fun to read where she's at and see where she's at on this map. Kaya is Kaya is, for me in my life when I was young, I really wanted to, from a small town, a very rural area, I really wanted to go everywhere. I wanted to fly, I wanted to see everything. And then I regressed a bit. So Kaya's life is kind of the opposite. When she's a child, she really wants to hold on to the areas that are around her, the lagoons, the marshes, the woods. She inherits a motorboat from her father after he leaves. She doesn't really even know what happens to him. He's a drunkard, so it's quite possible that he might have just accidentally stumbled into the ocean and never was seen again. She somehow is able to make a living all by herself up until the murder mystery starts to embark on her story, and then she's pulled into this world. It's quite a fascinating read just for that alone, but it's a beautiful read by Delia Owens. Oh my goodness, I hope that she has more books in her. I know she's exactly 70 years old as of the filming of this, and I think she has some more stories to tell because this is so well written. It's a red alert book. It's an absolute must read. You really fall in love with this world, with Kaya, with the world that kind of, you know, goes around her. And there's two young men that come into her life. One that teaches her to read, and he becomes a biologist on his own account. And then when he leaves Kaya, it's a very hard part of the book to deal with because you really feel for her. She meets another young man, and he's actually the one that ends up being murdered. One of the things I really related to in this book is when Kaya goes to Point Beach, where all the kids from the local town go to hang out and do their own thing. She's often hiding in the bushes or in the thicket, and she doesn't know their names, but she names them by what they are wearing and stuff like that. And she says she really wants to. She's tired of the loneliness, although it's something that she becomes dependent on is the loneliness and her own independence and her need to be away from society. There's that I would love to have their lives. How can I have their lives? How can I be friends with them? How can I be a part of this? How can I joke and laugh? And when you've had the upbringing, this devastating upbringing that Kaya's had as a child, she's just not equipped for that. And it's so sad to see her be labeled the Marsh Girl and have a town go against her almost, simply because they don't they fear what they don't understand. And this ending of this book, there's a couple twists, but the ending of this book is probably why this book has the word of mouth that it has, because it's a stunner. Your jaw will hit the ground. It is like that. I hope this was a good enough discussion about this book. No spoilers, I don't think any that I have to put a spoiler tag. Like I said, I don't know if I said it. I got this book from a friend who felt that they related to this story so much, Kaya's upbringing, that they had notes written in this book and lines so they could remember things. So there's a lot of word of mouth to this book. I think it came out last year, but people in my town are just now getting around to reading it. And like I said, I do a lot of stuff with book clubs. And this was a great read. It's a red alert read. As you know, I have a color system, and this is red alert. I don't think I've had anything. Yeah, I did have an orange alert kind of review on something, but I can't remember what it was. So thank you for watching me for almost 10 minutes. I don't like having a video that long, but this story is something else. And I think a lot of you from any age range and any like guy, girl are going to love this book. It's just well written, and I hope Delia Owens has more stories to tell. Thank you guys.